Hello everyone, how are you all? I believe all of you are healthy and safe. Students, today I will get started with this very important quote. Let's see what it says here. I will respect your opinion as long as your opinion doesn't disrespect anyone else's existence. And this should be the mantra of existence in the world that we dream of, the world in which we live or we want to live. If we have to live in this world with happiness, liberty, then we have to respect the dignity, liberty, culture, heritage of another person. And that is how we can create a better world to live in. That is how we can create a wonderful, magical, magnificent place for our children so that they do not have such memories of their childhood that they don't want to look back upon, so that the children can have a flowery childhood, a good one at least. The chapter that we are going to deal with today has two parts. It is entitled as Memories of Childhood, written by two writers, Zitkala-Sa and Bama. Both are female writers and they go back into their childhood to recall some memories that they did not want to, but they still did. So let's go through why they did so, what is special about this chapter. The chapter contains two extracts from two different autobiographical episodes from the lives of two women, Zitkala-Sa and Bama. Both are victims of social discriminations. Zitkala-Sa is the victim of racial discrimination, whereas Bama is the victim of caste discrimination. In both the extracts, the writers look back on their childhood and reflect on their relationship with mainstream culture, which ill-treated them when they were child. And this is how the memories of childhood is not those happy memories, my dear children. These are those memories that nobody wants to encounter, but somehow it dawned upon them. And they are now talking about these memories. As stated, the chapter is divided into two parts. There are two autobiographical accounts. The first one, today we are going to go through. It is The Cutting of My Long Hair by Zitkala-Sa. Let's learn about the author. Gertrude Simmons Bonin, born in 1876, was an extraordinarily talented and educated Native American woman who struggled and triumphed in a time when severe prejudice prevailed towards Native American culture and women. As a writer, she adopted the pen name Zitkala-Sa and in 1900 began publishing articles criticizing the Carlisle Indian School. Her works criticized dogma, and her life as a Native American woman was dedicated against the evils of oppression. I believe after going through this paragraph, you must be wondering about some important terms. The first one being the Carlisle Indian School. We will learn about this school from the summary of the chapter, why it was criticized by the writer. And what do you understand by the word dogma? It means a fixed, specially religious belief or set of beliefs that people are expected to accept without any doubts, and there cannot be any change. So when dogma prevails, no change is acceptable, and that is where the problem lies. And then let's learn about who these Native American people are, who are American Indians. Now, indigenous people of North America, these are the Native Americans, and the word is indigenous, naturally existing in a place or country rather than arriving from another place. For an example, are there any species of frog indigenous to this area? Or we can take another example, jackfruit, used as both a vegetable in its raw form and as a fruit in its ripe form. The jackfruit traces its origins to the southwestern forests of the Western Ghats. According to archaeological findings, the jackfruit has been cultivated in India since 3000 to 6,000 years. It means that jackfruit happens to be an indigenous produce of India. Native American people are the indigenous people of North America. When we think about the United States of America, people were located, they came from various parts of the world. We have African Americans, people belonging to European countries, those who had roots in South Asia, Asian countries. So this is how America is populated in a very diverse manner. But then there are those people who have been living in North America for years and years, centuries. Those people are the Native Americans. They did not come there from anywhere else. They have been living there only. These are the people. You can call them the kind of tribal people, those who have a very strong culture and heritage intertwined with their daily life. And that is how they are very different from the regular American people. Well, moving forward, groups of native people lived on the North American continent long before they were discovered by European explorers. They often associated together by their common language and culture. These natives have been known as Indians, American Indians, Native Americans, the native races of North America, and other similar terms. Original records and books about them may be listed or catalogued under any or all of these terms. So these are the Indian Americans or American Indian people. Almost none of the American Indian groups had a written language. Most of the early records regarding them were created and preserved by individuals and governments dealing with the natives. The Native Americans used oral history methods to preserve their history and culture. And as you can see in the picture, that how they have preserved their culture in their daily lives. And undoubtedly, they appear to be very different from the regular American people. Then comes a very important part of the chapter, racial discrimination. What is it? Racial discrimination is any discrimination against any individual on the basis of their skin color or racial or ethnic origin. Individuals can discriminate by refusing to do business with, socialize with, or share resources with people of a certain group. Now, as you can see in the picture here, the girl here, what she's trying to say. So, what does your hair look like today? She said, as she pulled off my hat without my permission. This particular act falls under the category of racial discrimination because the way she would tie up her hair is strictly associated with her family line, her culture, and nobody is given a right to ask about it or to take off something from her personality and tease her like that. So this is a kind of racial discrimination only because she belonged to a different community than the mainstream culture. So we are talking about the mainstream culture, the mainstream people, those who are in the majority, and the marginalized communities. In this chapter, both the girls, they belong to the marginalized communities, the community which was less in number, and that is why the majority was not ready to understand their problems. Racial discrimination occurs when a person is treated less favorably or not given the same opportunities as others in a similar situation because of their race, the country where they were born, their ethnic origin, or their skin color. For example, an employer refused to hire a suitably qualified Aboriginal. Aboriginal also means indigenous. Aboriginal person as a shop assistant and instead hired a less qualified person of a different race because they felt they could lose customers if they had an Aboriginal person working in the shop. This could be racial discrimination. Now coming to the chapter, let us learn about how Zitkalasa faced problems in Carlisle Indian School. The first day at school. The writer recalls that her first day in the land of apples was bitterly cold, with snow covering the surroundings. Besides, her first experience at the school where she was admitted with other Native American boys and girls was equally unpleasant. The noise made by the breakfast bell crashed into her ears. The clatter of shoes and the constant clash of harsh noises were pretty annoying. Zitkala longed for freedom, but it was useless to think of it. So we do not know how she ended up there, but we come to know about her existence from the very first day, about her existence in this particular school. So let's just go with the flow. Then comes the embarrassment. A white woman placed them into the line of girls who were marching into the dining room. The narrator noticed that they were Indian girls, all of them, who wore closely clinging dresses and stiff shoes. The small girls wore sleeved aprons and had shingled hair. She was feeling extremely uncomfortable in the school dress. Besides, her blanket had been taken off from her shoulders, making her feel all the more embarrassed. She found other Indian girls more immodestly dressed than her in their tightly fitting clothes. So it's very different from her culture actually, that is why. And they would keep long hair, not the shingled hair which she saw was present everywhere. So as you can see here on your right is that a Native American girl with her long hair, two braids are there, and there is this shawl covering the upper part of the body. And when that shawl was snatched away from her, she felt very embarrassed because it was as if someone was taking away her culture or her identity, and that is why it made her very much embarrassed. She also saw boys come in from the opposite door. A small bell was tapped, and every student pulled out a chair from under the table. The narrator also pulled out a chair and sat down. But she was surprised to find that she was the only one sitting. Because it was her first day, she did not know much about the rules, and everything was going on as per the tapping of the bell, and she did not know this bell was only to pull out the chair and not to sit down. There was another bell for that. Just as she began to rise, a second bell was rung. All were seated and she had to crawl back into her chair again. She heard a man at one end of the hall and he was praying. The other students sat with their heads hung over their plates. So the children had no authority at all. They were working as if they were machines because every time they had to do something, they could only do it when the order was given through the bell. So we can assume that this particular school had its own rules and regulations and they were very strict about that. And these were young children, but these people were pretty strict about everything that was going on. As the narrator was glancing at the surroundings, she caught the eyes of a pale face, a white woman, upon her. She wondered why the woman was looking at her keenly. So, it was her very first day and she was continuously being glared at by a white woman. That made her so nervous. And we can come to know through this that the children were all American Indians, but the authority, the people working in the administration, everybody was white people. After the man ceased his mutterings, a third bell was tapped and everybody started eating with a knife and fork. Zitkala instead started crying. She probably had never eaten using knives and forks. All the new changes were too much for her to take. And such a young girl in completely alien society was completely astonished by all this strange going on around her. She probably was too much overwhelmed by that, and that is why she started crying. But then came the terrible warning. The eating by formula was not the end of her woes. Her friend Judwin knew some English and she had overheard the white woman talk about cutting their long and heavy hair. The thought of having her hair cut was unacceptable to the narrator. Her mother had taught her that only skilled warriors who became prisoners in war had their hair shingled, cut by the enemy. In their society, short hair was worn by mourners and shingled hair by cowards. And as I showed you in the previous picture, the Native American girls or women, they would always keep their hair very long and they would not cut them. So when she learned about cutting off her long hair, she decided to protest, save her hair as much as possible. Judwin thought that the school people were strong and they will have to allow their hair to be cut, but Zitkala was ready to put up with the fight. She told her friend that she would struggle first and not submit willingly before the oppressors. When she got the chance to escape, she crept upstairs unnoticed. She entered a large room. It was dark as the curtains were down. Zitkala crawled under the bed farthest from the door. After some time, people started searching for her. She heard Judwin call her name, but she did not answer. So all she could do to save her hair was that she could hide herself somewhere, and that is how she hid herself in a dark room under a bed. But obviously she was found out. Finally, the women and girls who were looking for Zitkala entered the room in which she was hiding. She held her breath while the others searched the room. The next thing she remembered was being dragged out. She was resisting, kicking and scratching wildly. She was carried downstairs and tied to a chair. As she felt a cold scissor blade against her neck gnaw one of her thick braids. This was the end of her resistance. She lost her spirit. So she could not put up with the fight for a very long time. She was just a little girl against all those people, and her hair were cut. She was reminded of all the humiliations she went through since the day she parted with her mother. She was deeply sad and nobody comforted her. She missed her mother and felt like an animal driven by a herder. So this comes in the end. This is the end of this account. It's not a happy ending. The hair of Zitkala, they were cut brutally by the administration of Carlisle Indian School, and it was as if taking away a part of her identity, a part of her age-old culture, a part of the teachings of her mother. She never wanted her hair to be cut, but that happened against her will. Why? Because maybe, most probably, the white people in the picture, in this account, they were heavily prejudiced against the culture of Red Indians, and that is why they wanted to cut down the hair so that they could bring a change of some kind, God knows what. But it was very wrong of them to do something like this. They should have tried to understand the belief of other people, in this case the Native Americans. And this is how one could be a part of making a better world, by understanding that each one around us is different from us. I am me, you are you. Everybody is different and everybody is human. So we have to respect other human beings, despite the fact that they are vegetarians or not, that they are Indians or not, that they speak the same language that I do or not, that they belong to a different community altogether, a religion or caste. It doesn't really matter. I am a human and so are they, and that is how we must respect each other. Then only we can head towards a better future. Then only we can live in a better world. So with this, let's close it for today. The second part will be about Bama, but this was the first one, The Cutting of My Long Hair by Zitkala. Thank you.